Hey everyone, Mrs. Spatola here. Today we're going to take a look at Unit 1, Lesson 7, Rounding and Estimating Sums and Differences. So how are whole numbers and decimals rounded? Well, the first thing you want to do is understand what estimate by rounding actually means. Well, rounding means, literally, that you are looking at place value. So you look at place value and you look at the digit to the right. So you look at digit to the right. And then you determine whether or not the number is greater than 5. If it's 5 or more, you can add one more or up the score. If it's 4 or less, you let it rest. So with rounding, you look at place value and you look to the right of the number to determine whether you're going to round up or stay the same. Here's a little rounding rule. You may have had all of yours in elementary school. Your teachers may have taught you something a little similar to this. All right, let's continue. So now we're going to look at rounding whole numbers to the place value given. So be on the lookout for keywords that suggest estimating, like the word about. Quite often in word problems, you see the word about. About is a key word to let you know that you definitely have to round. And here's just a visual here. If it's 5 or more, we up the score. 5 or more, we up the score, we go up. If it's 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, we stay the same. We stay the same. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of examples. Example 1, round 4,525 to the nearest hundreds place. So obviously, what's one of the things you definitely need to know when you are working with rounding and estimating? You need to know your place value. Okay, you definitely need to know your place value. That's something that we're going to look at also this week when we take our test, boys and girls. Place value is going to be very important, whether it's whole number place value or decimal place value. Okay, so what do we do here? Here's the underlined digit. We go next door and we say 5 or more, add one more. So when we see this, we can see that the number next door is a 2. So that doesn't go up any higher. So it's 4 or less, let it rest. So this becomes 4,000. The 5 remains the same, and then we zero out the next two numbers. Okay, let's take a look down here. Numbers, rounding numbers to any decimal place. Okay, number 1, underline the digit to be rounded and look at the number to the right. It's always about the digit to the right, and then decide if the underlined number goes up 1 or stays the same. So let's take a look at our example number 2, and it says to round to the nearest tenth. So we're lucky enough here, they underline the digit. So we look here. We have 13 and 56 hundredths. So we're going to go to the underlined number. We make our little arrow. We say 5 or more, up the score, 4 or less, let it rest. So I see that it's more than 5 because the number's 6. So I'm going to add 1 to the 5 over here. So our number becomes 13 and 6/10. Now, if you wanted to, you could make that a 0, okay, if you wanted to. Okay, now let's take a look at rounding to the nearest whole number or the ones place. Very often we're going to use the decimal in the tenths place to help us to round to the nearest ones place. Let's take a look here. So we're going to round 420 and 299 thousandths to the nearest whole number or ones place. Please know that the whole number and ones place are going to be the same thing. Okay, so we have 420. We see the ones place or the whole number is 0. We go next door and we see that this number here in the tenths place is going to make the decision as to whether or not the 0 stays the same or if it goes up 1. Well, if I use my little saying, 5 or more, up the score, 4 or less, let it rest, what do I notice? I see that this is less than 5, so it's going to be 420. And we're good to go. Alrighty, let's just do a couple of these together. Okay, I'm going to ask you, let's see, number 27, we're going to round these to the nearest 10, So we go to the tens place, and then we go next door. So 5 or more, up the score. So we're going to add 1 to the 2, that becomes 30. We're going to head down this way. 76, okay, rounding. 5 or more, up the score. 6 is more than 5, so I'm going to add 1 to the 7, and that becomes 80. Okay, here's a tricky one. Okay, 5 or more, up the score. The 8 is more than 5, so I'm going to add 1 here. Now be careful. What does that one become? Good, it becomes 100. Next, nearest 10. Now be careful. We'll go to the tens place here. 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Okay, this is less than 4, so we're going to let it rest. It becomes 240. Okay, do 1 more. 460. Okay, if I look here, 5 or more, up the score, that becomes 470. And you could finish that up and do a little bit more practice. Let's go down here, round these numbers to the nearest 100. So you're going to round to the nearest 100th place, and we'll do a couple of these together. 243, 5 or more, add 1 more, that stays at 200. Okay, 873, you go to the 7 next door. 5 or more, add 1 more. So 800 becomes 900. Awesome. 358. Now, basically what you're saying, is it closer to 300 or 400? 5 or more, add 1 more. We see that it's closer to 400. And what I'd like you to do is finish this column. And there's your answers that you can check. And now I'm going to ask you to do this column right here. Do some practice, pause the video, and then check your answers. And there's your answers. Okay, now for this section, again, round each number to the nearest 10th. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to find the 10th place. We underline, and we go to the number next door, and we say 5 or more, add 1 more. So this is 5, so we're going to add 1 here. So it's 15 and 6/10. If you like, you could just leave it like that or just zero them out. Okay, let's look at letter B. Is 4 and 872 thousandths. We want to round that to the nearest 10th. So we're going to go to the 10th place, underline it, 5 or more, add 1 more. So this becomes 4 and 9/10. Or we can zero it out, as Mrs. Gelderman likes to say, and we can make it 4 and 900 thousandths. Okay, we'll do another one, 362 and 846 10,000ths. Well, if we look here, there's a 0 in the 10th place. Go next door, 5 or more, add 1 more. So it is greater than 5. We're going to add 1 here. 362 and 1/10. All right, now let's do some practice. So we've had some practice with some rounding of numbers. The directions here say round each number to the nearest whole number or ones place to estimate the answer. Okay, so let's take a look at number 1. So what you're going to do here is you're actually going to, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger here. And what we're going to do is round to the nearest whole number. So basically what you're going to be doing, boys and girls, is you're going to be rounding each one to the ones place. And then you're going to add them together or subtract them, depending on what it says to do. So in this case here, okay, we're going to round this. 1 and 769 thousandths. I go next door, 5 or more, add 1 more. Add 1 here, so very basically this is 2. And I don't have to put a decimal in all the zeros, so this becomes 2 plus 0 and 687 thousandths. I go next door, 5 or more, add 1 more. Finally, my answer is 2 plus 1. Final answer is, let's take a look at number 3. Okay, try that one on your own, and I'll write it up for you in just a minute. And there's your answer for number 3. Let's go ahead and do number 5. Pause the video, and your answer will appear in just a minute. There you have your answer to number 5. Okay, Lastly, let's do number 7. We're going to round each one of these to the nearest ones place. By the way, once you get your totals, once you round your numbers, boys and girls, if you'd like to use your calculator, we're going to start using them, so you can use your calculator. And the answer to number 7 is 3. All right, let's take a look at number 9 is a word problem. The Smith family went away to Disney World for the week. The airfare for 4 people was $523.98. So you want to definitely make sure that you underline the number. Okay. The tickets to the park cost $267.67. And the total they spent on food for the week was $321.43. Now here's your question about how much money did the Smith family spend at Disney World for the week? Now here's a big clue. Estimate each cost to the nearest whole number first. So it's giving you a clue. So let's go through each one. So what you want to do is make a list of all of the numbers that you're dealing with. So it's 523.98. And we have 267.67. And lastly, we have $321.43. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is round each of those to the nearest dollar. So go ahead and do that. Now that you have rounded each of these numbers to the nearest dollar, what do you think you need to do next? We want to figure out how much they spent altogether. So what operation would that be? Awesome, that's correct. You would definitely add them all together. And you can put these totals right into your calculator, boys and girls. So why don't you do that and get yourselves an answer. Once you add them all together, your answer should be $1,113. You have to look at your choices, and what's the best answer? Dun, 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 dun. Your answer is B. Awesome. And let's take a look at number 10. Which number is closest to 400 when estimated to the nearest whole number? So basically what you want to do is round each of these numbers to the nearest whole number to see which one comes closest to 400. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video and let's see what you come up with. And the correct answer is D. I hope you were correct. And here we are on our last page. This is going to be, boys and girls, your homework. You have 4 problems, 4 word problems, okay, that you're going to work on. Read the directions carefully. This is a multiple choice. I see the word about. If I look at this, they're asking us to estimate the team's total time, okay, to the nearest 1/10 of a second, so be careful on that one. This one here, they're asking you, they're talking about 2 children, and they want you to show all work and justify your answer. Please use your calculator. And the last thing is Vanessa is going shopping, and she has a $10 bill, and she's going to be buying some things. And the question is, use estimation, so you're going to round to see if she has enough money. Tomorrow is your first quiz, so make sure you just look through the lessons that we've covered so far. Try your best, and we'll see you next time.